There are moments in time that redefine our opportunities and expand what we believe is possible as women.
When I think about leadership, to me, the truth piece of it really means leading with honesty and integrity. I think that's one of the greatest gifts that we can have as leaders. Being up on a panel is oftentimes scary for lots of people. Speaking in public is a fear. I think as women, we have an opportunity to model that and to create safe spaces for our team members to show them that they can as well stand up and speak their truth.
You have to find what works really well for you, and you have to make sure that you lean into that. I got stage training, and the woman that trained me was wonderful, but she told me that I present too much like a female when I'm on stage. You have to uncross your legs. Your hand movements are too soft. They need to be a little harder. So I tried it, and I videoed myself for that next session. I looked like a fool. So I just went back to crossing my legs and making my soft, flippy hand motions. And it works. It works for me.
I realized the potential for influence the first time I spoke up in a room and I saw the direction of the conversation change. I was not only the only woman in the room, but I was probably the youngest person in the room.
I tell my team all the time, nothing is more important than your health. I think the shift came for me when I've actually started just demanding my time and my pause. As leaders, we prioritize our well-being. That's going to give everyone a permission to do the same.
There's only 35% of us in this industry. So I say concisely, women hire more women. We get more degrees than men. There's more of us out there in technical competencies now. You have to make a conscious effort to bring more women in all industries around you and bring that balance.
Good afternoon. How is everyone enjoying IMN West 2025? Okay, that was kind of lame. I thought this was Women Elevated. Can I get a elevated? I'm gonna count down 3, 2, 1 and give me the loudest elevate. Elevated. 3, 2, 1. Woo! Elevated. So there are moments in time that redefine our opportunities and expand what we believe is possible as women. And just like the eras that have come before us, we don't look back on the titles or the milestones or the deals that we've closed. The moments become significant because of something deeper, because of the excellence that is among us. By the way we support each other, by the way we champion each other, and by the way we rise together through every season, good or bad. At the heart of these eras are 3 things: the truth that we speak, the courage that we carry to speak it, and the valor we cultivate within ourselves and offer to one another, no matter the season. From the early years when we're just discovering our voices, to the years spent shaping our identities, to the powerful seasons where we use that voice to lift others higher. These are the moments that define us and expand what is possible. Today on this stage, you're gonna hear from 6 badass women who embody these 3 things and demonstrate that on a daily basis. Women who lead with impact, women who rise with intention, and women who remind us that when truth, courage, and valor collide, leadership doesn't just shift, it elevates. So welcome today to Right Here, Right Now, Women Leadership Elevated. Let's begin. So first up, Marnie and Gentry. When you think about this moment for women in leadership, leading in truth and courage and valor, what does that mean to you, ladies?
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me okay? Good. When I think about leadership and leading with truth, courage, and valor. I'm very, very pleased to look at our organization. We're 40% women at the executive level and about the same across our company. So there are lots of strong women and lots of strong leaders. And to me, the truth piece of it really means leading with honesty and integrity. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts that we can have as leaders, as all of us can have as leaders. And courage to me really means consistency in showing up. And valor, I think a willingness to really stand for what you believe in and sometimes stand alone if you have to do that. I love Glennon Doyle and I've read her, and what does she say? Women can do hard things, and she's a goddamn cheetah. So to me, those are some things that really resonate with me, and I think that's true of women leaders and of all leaders. But if we look at history where women have been involved in government, it's oftentimes a more peaceful government, and the peaceful resolutions have longer last to them. And so that's something that's always resonated with me, and I just really try to apply that across business. So I'm dying to hear what Marnie has to say.
Oh, well, I couldn't agree more. And Gentry, it's been a real pleasure getting to know these women, and especially our fearless moderator. Everything that Yvonne said about the way women show up is particularly important when you look at courage and valor and strength, because a lot of times women are wired a little bit differently, myself included. I'm more in the fight or flight situation. I'm more of the flight, and I'd prefer not to address conflict head on. So I think for me, courage means vulnerability and being able to admit that, hey, this isn't feeling good. This is kind of scary for me. Being up on a panel is oftentimes scary for lots of people. Speaking in public is a fear. But then also in terms of how people are treating each other, and when there is conflict to be resolved, to admit that you might need some help in how to do that with courage and balancing that with capitulation. And I had a really good example of a time when that happened for me. I was misrepresented on an issue by a coworker, and it was with another coworker who was particularly aggressive in his leadership style. And I wanted to just kind of fold up and walk away, and instead I reached out to my leader, who was a great example of someone who created the psychological safety that's necessary to be able to have those hard conversations. And I think that's, Gentry, what you were alluding to with that comment that you made about that courage and valor. And he was such a good role model for that, creating that space, and then also letting me get help externally. I actually ended up got an executive coach to talk me through, how do I show up, speak for myself, don't lose my power, and then resolve this conflict in such a way. And I love that what you said about the government and the peacefulness, and because that's really what I end up wanting for the long term is, let's all have a good time together, let's be kind to one another, respect each other. There's no need for aggressiveness and drama and whatnot. And I think as women, we have an opportunity to model that and to create those safe spaces for our team members to show them that they can as well stand up and speak their truth.
So your flight, right? How many in the room are flight under pressure and conflict? Are you fight or flight? How many of you are fight?
Ooh.
There we go. No doubt.
Good.
That's why this industry has done what we've done so quickly. With that, she sought a coach. And fighters have to seek coaches because that can come across aggressive. And so being surrounded by groups of women that can help you in those areas, look around this room and remember you're not alone. And they can help you. And it's not always pretty, is it? Not always pretty. All right, so thank you, Gentry and Marnie. So what was the first moment? Okay, so next question is gonna be Jacque Petroulakis with Next Metro and Jennifer Merritt with Rent Scale. So What was the first moment in your careers, ladies, that you realized that your voice actually had real influence?
Do I just speak? Okay, I guess I do.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, and I think I realized the potential for influence the first time I spoke up in a room and I saw the direction of the conversation change. And I was very early in my career. I was not only the only woman in the room, but I was probably the youngest person in the room. And it taught me that influence is not about volume. You know, it's about providing meaningful contributions, you know, with clarity. And that's what counts. I think we've all been in meetings or rooms where people seem to talk just to hear themselves talk. And I think what provides influence is being an active listener. And a lot of times we have a point we want to make, and you're not listening to the room. And when you're listening to the room, and then your point even becomes more valid, stronger, more influential. And so for me, that was the takeaway, is just being an active listener and realizing that your meaningful influence is going to be tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, and I think that you said, you know, influence, for me it's about impact. And that was really the first time that, for me, I felt my voice was heard. Before I came to the wonderful world of real estate, I was in the metals industry. And so metals industry is very old school. It's distribution. It is stainless, aluminum, and carbon, and you are surrounded by nothing but men, and likely in their 50s and 60s. And I was brought in to train the 1,300 salesperson team on how to sell. When I stood up in front of the room, I was 28 years old, dressed just as I am today, and none of the people in the room saw me as a real voice and someone to listen to. But their bosses told them they had to do what I said, which was fantastic. And so I walked away, you know, head held high after training all of these men how to sell, and they had to implement all of the things that I was telling them. And the first time I realized I had a voice was about a month after this training session. Several of the people that attended the session reached out to me and said, I thought this was all gonna be just fluff. I thought this wasn't gonna work, but I implemented the things you told me, and I tried it, and it changed the way that I sell forever. And that was the first time that I realized that my voice had that impact. And ever since, I don't know, it's like a adrenaline thing for me. And now how do I provide more impact? Because that was huge to help people level up and achieve something different that they didn't think was possible.
Sure. So in my journey, my boss said to me once, "You're in the room, stop trying so hard." Right? And I walked out of that room and I was like, yeah, stop trying so hard. You made it in the room. Those are real moments. And I was the only female on the leadership team. And those are the moments where you're like, how do I do that? So I want to tell you, and I see some heads nodding in the room, right? We're going to continue these conversations, because I wish I had another strong female to teach me those things in those moments. Like, what did that mean? I'm in the room, you know, or just navigating that. That's tough. And all the emotions, because don't we have emotions? We have a lot more emotions. I don't think we have more emotions than men. I think we show them and share them maybe a little more freely. And sometimes, or we don't. And then we pretend that we don't have those feelings. And I want every woman in this room to know, and the men that are here to support us, by the way, thank you, that you're allowed to feel anything you feel. And you don't have to apologize for that anymore, starting today. Because you have 7 women on this stage that I promise you, if you pick up the phone, they'll answer. and they'll coach you. They're not going to tell you what to do, but they'll help, and they've helped me. Every single one of them have helped me through some tough times, good times, and all the things. Sometimes we just need someone to celebrate with us. So, all right, thank you. These are good questions. Is this valuable? Do you feel like we're getting into like some real discussions? Because that's our goal, and we want to get deeper in some of these discussions and get to the real stuff, right? So let's get into what advocating for ourselves really looks like. So we're going to have Kerry, Gentry, and Marnie address this. So advocating for ourselves and for others is one of the hardest skills to develop, especially in industries that move fast and demand so much. And we have fear of advocating for ourselves. And so these wonderful ladies are going to help us understand how they've navigated advocating.
Okay, yes, I'm going. Yeah, I think what you said resonates and really is a great transition into that. Prior to being in SFR, I was in another disruptive industry, which was cell phones. But it was very similar. It was very fast-paced, very, just quick moving. I was young in my career, and when I think about what I know now and what I could tell that person 20 years ago of, just being happy, I was just blessed to be in the room. And because of that, the advocacy wasn't there for me. I found myself keeping myself quiet, didn't want to be seen as difficult or demanding or, quote unquote, passionate. And so I
How many of you have been called passionate? Those aggressive ones in the room. Yeah.
It's a good thing, right? I've taken time now in my old age to actually embrace that and say, yes, I am. I'm very passionate. But back then I tried not to be. And I think understanding that difference and really now I lead a global team of over 100 young individuals that are in their 20s. And, it's something that I try to be very intentional about with them is creating that psychological safety and that space to allow them. And for folks maybe who don't self-advocate, pushing them out of their comfort zones. Sometimes they're not happy about it, but calling on someone, right? And maybe even just asking someone, are you okay? How are you feeling? We've seen a little off today. So I think the last thing is just advocating when it's also not most beneficial. It might be a very uncomfortable place. You might be in a room that's quiet, there's high stakes, but by us showing up now, we will continue to pave the path forward for folks like myself 20 years ago, right? And won't have those same issues. They won't feel like, please, sir, may I have some more? Yeah. No, I'm happy to be here and I deserve to be here.
And I'm paying the bill.
And I'm paying the bill. Well, no. No,
That's right.
It took me a long time to learn that nobody else will really advocate for you if you don't advocate for yourself.
That's right.
And I think that's across the board. I'd like to go attend that meeting. I'd like to travel to see that property or go on that site tour. I'd like to participate in the upside of the value that I'm creating for this firm. And so asking for those things and being consistent, showing up, and doing it when it makes sense to do it is really, really important. But if you don't ask, you may never get. And so I think that's so important to do that. I feel as women, we become more ourselves the older we get. That's a huge value. So something certainly to embrace. But I think advocating and teaching all of the young people that we're mentoring is really a great service that we can do for them. And particularly in this very, very difficult job environment that we're in right now. I was just reading some stats about college-age grads and just the very high unemployment numbers that we're seeing right now. And I think that's an AI impact, that's an uncertainty in the economy impact, and it's not going to be getting any better immediately. And so just, helping to bring that next generation along and help them advocate for themselves. But if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it for you. So certainly, I think it's one of the most important things that we can learn in business and in life.
Marnie?
I totally agree. I was thinking about this question in terms of both aspects that you asked about. One, in advocating for others, and then obviously secondly, which always seems to be second place, for mom, wife,
'cause I said that
mother,
first.
associate. I'm going to be first and talk about first for myself. I found some great success in seeking out people to advocate for me, to ask people to represent me in rooms that I'm not in. I've looked at some really strong women that have been mentors for me in my career and taken their advice, learned from their role modeling, and then I'm able to then turn that around and present that to team members and then others that I come in contact with in my company or in my former company. And where that's really shown up and where it's been really the biggest challenge of my career is recently when I left Invitation Homes after 12 years and I found myself looking for a job for the first time. I've always had jobs come to me, and I've not been really good about my LinkedIn network or talking to any recruiters. So I was really starting from ground zero. And it does seem that I've seen the most success in getting opportunities presented to me when I advocate for myself. And that's very difficult to sell yourself. I can sell all kinds of stuff. I've sold all kinds of things in my career. Always been in the real estate industry, but so I don't have any kind of context of other industries, but all the different asset classes are very similar in terms of the talent and the policies and practices, and then the leadership that's necessary for those groups. Okay, so on the flip side, advocating for others, I really feel like feedback is a gift, and it's a gift not only to the person who is receiving it, but also to the person who's giving it. And I found that when I'm able to give honest and constructive feedback to team members, and I'm talking about both positive and constructive, because I think that I heard someone say once that unexpressed appreciation feels like rejection. And that really resonated with me because I feel that. When I feel like someone doesn't appreciate or value what I've contributed or how well I did something, I think we're all kind of little kids at heart when it comes to that. You want to be given that atta-girl or atta-boy. So I try to really make sure that I'm modeling that for team members. And I was so honored. I have actually one of my former colleagues and besties and my work bestie, Phil Yee, here in the room with us. Also former IH and now Chief Commercial Officer for Utility Valet and Starship Residential founder and owner. He reached out and asked if I would mentor someone on his team. And what was so great about that is, first of all, it was such a compliment that he felt like I could add some value to his team member. And secondly, I prepared for that the way that I had been mentored, because it was a formal arrangement with our CHRO, and she had paperwork, she had documents, she had a contract for mentoring and coaching, and was very well prepared for every single meeting that we had. So I did a lot of research into how to be a good mentor, and that helped me grow as a leader. And then I was able to then do the same thing with others, even if I didn't have such a formal arrangement with them.
For
So
sure.
I think in both cases, just being really intentional about how you're advocating for yourself and for others is the key.
Well,
I think for me, I had to let go of the fact that there was a certain way for a woman to lead. I am a little bit of a bull in a china shop, and I do fight with fire. And my empathy bar is fairly low. And so
Same.
when I became a leader, I thought, well, I better figure out how to get more empathetic, and I better lead softer, and I better lead, differently. And I had a bunch of wonderful, absolutely incredible male role models that led me through my career and still to this day do. And I thought I had to lead like them. I thought I had to look like them. Well, some of them definitely rubbed off on my fire that I give. But I think, for Marnie to lead soft and not love conflict. But for me, like, I love conflict. Bring it all to me. I'm good with the conflict, you know? I handle it well. And I don't think that there's any one way for a woman to show up and to lead. And I think that was my biggest thing that I had to let go of, was that it doesn't need to look like every other woman or like every other man. You have to find what works really well for you, and you have to make sure that you lean into that, because finding that authentic self and just leading the way that you want to be led, to me, has always been very effective.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in real quick and kind of underscore what you were just talking about with the fire and the fight. I actually got accused of having sharp elbows a few years ago. And someone who I really respected, I brought to him and I said, can you just tell me where this is coming from? I want to understand so that I can soften my elbows, right? And understand. He goes, whoever said that is really myopic and they're stupid and you shouldn't even worry about it. And if you were a man, would you think they would say that about you? And I thought about it and I thought, that's so true, that there isn't one right way or wrong way, but at the end of the day, whatever your way is the way to do it.
Marnie, I love that, because I got stage training. I speak on a lot of stages, and I got stage training. And the woman that trained me was wonderful, but she told me that I present too much like a female when I'm on stage. And I was like, well, yes, I sure do.
I sure do.
And so she said, you have to uncross your legs. It looks like you're guarded. And you have to move with softer hand movements. Your hand movements are too soft. They need to be a little more matter of fact, a little harder. And I was like, okay. So I tried it and I videoed myself for that next session. I looked like a fool. So I just went back to crossing my legs and making my soft, flippy hand motions. And it works. It works for me.
Well, it's a trite saying, right? People say you need to be real, but truly that is what I learned over time is, my style, my thoughts, my charisma. That's what it is, and that's something I shouldn't change. Early in my career, I really thought that it was important to rise and to become a leader in any company. You had to be a lot more serious. And what I have found is just the opposite, is that humor is a superpower.
Yeah, it is.
And it's gotten me through a lot more board meetings than coffee, for sure. And it's those little things, just realizing that to be confident in you, and I mean, obviously, you always have to read a room. There's sometimes in my investor relations roles, sometimes I would meet Japanese dignitaries. There are certain cultural things that you need to know. Yeah, you're going to change and modify and read the room. But in terms of you and your personality and what shines through, I mean, this is not to me, a man or a woman issue. This is a being confident in you issue, right? And if you have that, everything follows. I was just going to mention one thing on that is, the other thing that I think is important, maybe not so much because I didn't do the prep that I should have done for this meeting, but is to be prepared, right? Going into a meeting and being prepared, doing your background, and realizing that maybe what you're preparing yourself for might change based on the discussion, what have you. But preparation, I think, helps in any scenario. I don't think there's a thing to be over-prepared in any way you approach business, approach even interpersonal matters, being prepared, really thinking, reflecting. I think that early in my career, I didn't appreciate as much as I do now.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. So we talked a lot about men just now during this segment, and we wanted, as we were preparing and the ladies and I were talking, we were talking about male allyship, and we even tossed around we don't even like the word, male ally. Do they even like it? What does it even mean, right? And most of the people in this room today are women because they're like, oh, that's the woman's thing, right? But it's not. It's not the women's thing. Talking about women's leadership is not just women's work, right? But let's be clear about something. Male allyship is not an obligation that we should be putting on men at all. It's not something we need to put on them. Does that make sense? And I feel like sometimes maybe they feel that way. Because like, oh, now we gotta go support the women. Oh, I'm out here having drinks. It'd be so much more fun to stay out here. Right? Like, let's just be honest. Are we gonna be truthful? I mean, right, we're gonna have drinks right after this. Let me tell you, we know how to drink.
You know, but like Jen said, my biggest advocates have
been
ironically been men.
So am I.
And the leader of our company, you talk about passion and empathy and all these characteristics that we were saying are more female traits. He's got them all, right? He's the whole package. Yeah. So it's exciting to see that. And it's exciting to see that there's no barrier. It's just being willing to get out there and advocate for yourself. And
So I think it's shifting understanding. What are we wanting? Right? Do the men that aren't in this room know what this means for them to come here and support us? Like, do they have a true understanding of that? And like Jackie said, most of the people who got me to where I'm at today have been significant men. I've had a man bring in a JCPenney catalog, I'm aging myself now, and go through and show me how to dress. Because I was 19 years old, I was selling cars for Chrysler, and I was getting in trucks with guys, and I sold a lot of trucks. And I'm telling you, it had a lot to do with the way I dressed sometimes. But I didn't want that to be why people bought trucks from me. It's because I knew more than any other salesperson on that floor about a Hemi and what a slip differential was. I knew it, and I had 100% customer satisfaction score from Chrysler. That's why I wanted people to buy from me and why I could sell the most trucks, right? So for generations, and this Reshma and Gentry and Marnie are going to tackle this one. For generations, boys were not taught how to advocate or lift up women. They weren't taught. Men have daughters, they have sisters, partners, mothers, navigating the same waters that every woman in this room is sitting. So if you have a daughter, Brian, you have a daughter. You help her navigate these things, right? Men not need to know how to do it to help us in this room, but their mothers, their aunts, their sisters. So ladies, let's tackle that one, right? And like, how can we help support you back today to help you help other women in your life? I think that's what it means to show up today and have a different understanding of why maybe you came here today. Because you might have a 9-year-old that she's gonna deal with what we've dealt with, right?
Hi.
Sorry, started down that path.
So I've been fortunate enough to have lots of male mentors in tech early in my career, but let's be real, I've had lots of obstacles who are men as well in my career. And whether it's fight or flight, I tend to be a fighter. The truth is that in any room you walk into, there's a power dynamic. Mm-hmm. And I think the best thing that men can do is to understand that there's a power dynamic. But let's just step back in our industry for just a minute here, right? This is not a social issue. I think we conflate the men-women thing as a social issue. It's really a business thing. It's just good business to balance enough diversity in a room. Your customers, your renters, your residents are diverse. They don't all look the same. Mm-mm. Why wouldn't we want to make decisions with diverse thinkers in the room, men and women? It's just good business. And so what I've realized is that The National Association of Realtors, mostly women. They're the sellers. Single women are buying more homes than single men. They're the buyers, sellers and buyers, right? But when you go into a corporate conference room in this industry, there's only 30% of us that are women. When you go into a general partnership meeting and they're doing deals and funds and you're dealing with some of your investors, 30% of us are women, right? There's a power dynamic shift. And so what I would recommend for those of us that have daughters that want to be in this industry, for those of us that have sisters that are still trying to get a seat at the table, is that if you're in those rooms, to be aware and seek balance, right? Look around you. If there's only 30% of us in that room, understand that balance is just good business. And look around at who the center of the room is. The loudest voices, the biggest titles. If that's you, look at the next ring. Look at the ring around that. Who are the most invisible folks that are probably doing the work and not getting the credit? Bring them into the center. Recognize them. Ask what their opinions are. The more that people hear you doing that, the more they will model that behavior.
That's right.
That's probably the biggest advice I would give is diversity is just good business. Stop making it a social issue.
And modeling it. Woo! That's good stuff. You want to add to that?
We're running low on time, so I'll just quickly say that I think that's the key, the diversities issue, and then also the understanding and the learning that happens when you do ask those questions and you do have that awareness. We had a women's ERG at Invitation Homes that I was fortunate to be the executive sponsor for, and it was called the Women's Impact Network, which is the acronym WIN, which I love. And we surveyed the men that participated in that ERG to find out, again, like you said, why are you here? What do you hope to gain from this ERG, just as we did the women. And what we learned was exactly what Yvonne said. They wanted to understand the lives that they weren't living, but that the women that they loved were.
Aww.
And I thought that was a really poignant result. And so I think you're spot on when you say it that way.
Well, in the shift, I believe, right now, the majority of the working class are Gen X and millennials. And they're leading with empathy. And so if the mindset does not shift, they're going to talk about it. And they're going to speak about it in places that you don't control. Or that we don't control. Social media, within their close-knit groups. And not always in a good way. So I think that, empathy is absolutely a trait of a leader that I look for. But I lean with Jen. If you were to ask my team at Preferred Floor and Tile, where I worked before here, they'd say, yeah, she'd give you the shirt off her back. She's one of the hardest working people in this company. I wasn't always the most empathetic because I go into solve it mode, fix the problem, right? And so empathy is key.
Let me just add one last thing.
Go ahead.
Empathy is key, and the millennials and the Gen Xers also notice when there's people like them that are not represented in the room.
That aren't represented.
Right? That empathy is what's getting them to be more aware than generations like us on the stage.
That's right.
Not Jennifer's probably younger than us, but that is my generation, right? Like they are probably more aware than the rest of us, and if we don't start modeling what they're modeling, they're not going to work for us.
Then I was going to say that, and I held back, so thank you for saying it. Because I was like, they're not going to work for you. And you're going to have a hard time to attract talent. You'll go to business. That's how serious it is. Women have been conditioned to compete against each other. Because we're fighting for leadership positions, we act catty to one another. We size each other up in the room. I've done it. You've walked in the room and I've looked you from your head to your toe, and I've measured myself against you, and you've done it to me, and I know it. And we do it every time, and we need that to end. When you walk in the room, I want to be like, there she is. Lift each other up, and that shift is happening as well, right? Look for the girl in the room that you know she's uncomfortable, she's insecure, and invite her to sit at your table. the girl that it's her first conference and she's never come to one, you know who she is because you've been there. Get her and invite her and start introducing her to people, right? Those are the skills of leaders and how we elevate and lift one another up. So because of the imbalance in leadership roles, pay also. We're significantly paid less than men are. It's just a fact. That's not my opinion. I wish it was, and I wish I was wrong. The scarcity mindset is really real. And so just remember the next time you size her up, you're operating out of fear and scarcity, and it's not her fault. That's real, right? So, but we don't have to move forward by sizing each other up. We can move forward by lifting each other up. So Reshma, how do we shift from competition to collective elevation and rewrite the way women rise together?
Well, first compliment the shoes on the stage here.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to size us up, at least compliment our shoes, right?
And that corner over there has a lot of money in handbags.
At least start there. You know, in Tricon, when I was a CTO there, first of all, they hired, the first CTO was a woman CTO, by the way. So congrats to Tricon. But the 40, almost 45% of the directors and above in IT were women under my leadership, and we had about 120 IT folks. Here's what I'm going to say concisely: women hire more women. Mm-hmm. We get more degrees than men. Okay, there's more of us out there in technical competencies now, thanks to STEM and other focuses in school now. You have to make a conscious effort to bring more women in this industry and all industries around you, to bring that balance. There's only 35% of us in this industry, right? And so if we want to see more women in leadership, if we want to see more women as investors, if we want to see more women as JV partners and all of that, we have to go and seek out, especially women who've made it to those positions, to go hire more women. Be aware and seek balance, right? That's really kind of my mantra in life, I think, really. Is just to continue to hire more women. Now that seems counterintuitive. I know they have to have the right skill sets, all that, of course.
Sure.
But we're, I think, way past that. Like there's so many women that are now qualified. I'm not sure that we consciously think about that. And those barriers, ladies, we probably put more barriers in between us than any man really does.
Yeah.
Because we take it so sensitively when a woman slights us. And maybe it's evolutionary. I don't know. I don't have the science behind that right now. But I think that if we can learn forgiveness much sooner than we do today, that would probably go a long way.
And just know where she may be coming from, right? Seek to be curious as to why maybe you're feeling friction, or you're feeling like, does she not like me? Or, all those things. I'm just being honest with how I have felt in certain rooms sometimes. So. All right, we're down to a handful of minutes. So we talk about having it all, but the real challenge is balancing it all. So let's face it. So as a woman, we have our careers, we have families, ambitions, relationships, and our own well-being. We should move that well-being to the front, right? Because sometimes that just doesn't we don't get to it. So the balance isn't a routine. It shifts as the seasons of our lives shift. So when you have little babies at home, it might look a little different than now I have a 21-year-old at home. So women are often the nurturers in everyone else's world. And too often we put ourselves last. So how do we help each other and remind ourselves to pause, reset, and honor the time we need without waiting for permission to take time for us? Kerry and Marnie, you want to tackle that?
I'm still working on this one.
I think this is
we
an
all are.
evolution. I tell my team all the time, nothing is more important than your health, but I will continually drive myself to exhaustion. So, it's the old adage of, do what I say and not as I do. I'm learning this though. I think with balance, there is no finite balance. It's finding just recalibration each time, similar to what you were saying. But I think the shift came from me when I've actually started just demanding my time and my pause. Even though I'll push myself sometimes to exhaustion. Last week, Thanksgiving, I'm out, I'm on PTO. I am gonna relax. Do you think I relaxed for one moment? Absolutely not. And the most
Texting me from the
important
movie
part,
theater.
none. Most important part, I ran into Target, was doing something for a charity, and I said something, I'm like, perfection. And she goes, no. She goes, practice makes progress. I was like, wow. The most important thing that happened on my PTO happened at the cashier at Target, but it was very profound to pause and be like, you have to ask for it, you gotta take the time out, and just, as leaders, we have to emulate that to our teams to let them know. As we prioritize our well-beings, that's gonna give everyone a permission to do the same. So long story short, still working on it, but I'll do better every day.
Yeah, I think we all are. So Steve's poking me, so I've got to wrap up here. So Marnie, I'm sorry. Any one word, like 2 words?
Do it now, take care of it now, or it will be worse.
There you
Don't
go,
take care
see?
of it now, when it comes to health.
Yeah. So as we close today's conversation, we've heard from women who choose to stand together, not for themselves, but for the movement larger than all of us. Today we heard wisdom earned through experience. We saw what leadership looks like when it is rooted in intentionality, in impact, not imitation, in rising together, not climbing alone. I hope you leave here today inspired to use your voice before you feel fully ready to use it. To choose courage before you have clarity. To show up visibly, not for recognition, but because visibility creates possibility for other women who are watching you. We acknowledge the seasons that have shaped us. We honor the men who stand with us. Thank you. Not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to support the women in their lives. The true allies. The ones aware of the rooms where women remain underrepresented, who choose to use their voice and presence to make space for us. They stand beside us not as a burden, but because they know we also belong there. But here's the part we can't miss. Nothing changes because we talk about it, about leadership. Everything changes when we choose to lead differently after today. So as you leave this stage, ladies, and we walk back into the rooms where you'll work and build and influence and negotiate and mentor, I want to leave you with this. In the next 30 days, choose one woman to elevate. Not in theory, not in spirit, but in action. Offer a door, make an introduction, speak her name in a room that she's not in. Give her the feedback that no one else had the courage to give her, and tell her the truth. Celebrate the failures that teach her. Remind her that her voice is needed, her courage is noticed, and her presence really matters. Because rising alone may create success, but rising together will create a movement. So this movement right here, right now, leadership elevated. Thank you for everything. Thank you.